Okay, so let's move on. Let's talk about another guy who also doesn't have a lot of class. This is my good old pal Roger Stone. Let's see if we can't find a picture of him, just so you guys can get an idea of who he is. So we're just gonna look up Roger Stone on Google Images. Yeah, so it's this guy. You ever seen him before? Big old round glasses, looks like a motherfucker. Yeah, so this guy, he's associated a lot with WikiLeaks. Yeah, here's a good picture of him. Let's take it back a little while. Let's take this back actually quite a ways. So we're gonna take it back to 2016 election, and we're gonna take it back to the hack of the DNC and all those emails getting leaked. You guys remember? You guys remember, right? The emails for about 4-ish months. You know, while the campaign was going on, all you ever heard about was the emails, the emails, the emails. Well, this is the emails. Roger Stone is actually, he works pretty closely with Julian Assange, or at least associates of Julian Assange, and they all work together on WikiLeaks. And so basically the Mueller investigation, at least I think it was the Mueller investigation, they indicted him on a couple charges. The main ones: obstruction, witness tampering, and false statements. You know, the people who worked at WikiLeaks, and he was telling them things that he shouldn't have said, and so he actually got he had to pay bond for that. And so what we get into now is this is an Instagram post. You see a super well done. This is his presiding judge. So presiding judge is basically just the person who oversees what's going on. He has a hearing with her actually on Thursday, I believe. Let's just check back and see. Yeah, so basically what happened was Roger, good old Raji, he posted this picture with the little crosshair, and he was like, he said something or other. Yeah, deep state hitman, all this shit. You know how it is. You know how it is with these guys. They're fuckers. So I want to make a distinction here. I'm not really a political person, especially when it comes to talking to regular people. I think that like being a conservative or what am I saying? A conservative or a liberal, just in daily life doesn't help you, and it generally will just fuck you more. So I try to just be a centrist. But the places that I will be a liberal are with these fuckers. You know, these big fuckers. I'm talking the social elite. I want to say I'll come up eventually. I'll come back on and I'll have a word to describe what kind of a political person I am. But I just don't like people with a lot of power and money. I think they're fucking idiots most of the time, and that the people who get into office or the people who have a lot of the power, they're either, you know, crazy and genius or whatever, and they know how to manipulate people, and they can screw everyone over, and they have this immense power over everyone, or they're complete idiots and assholes, and they get to politics however way they can. That Roger Stone is an example of the latter. He's a fuck, really, truly through and through. But yeah, he has on Thursday. Here we go. He'll have to talk to a judge about all this shit, and especially, well, mostly just these charges. But he was pretty much home free. He had some kind of a gag or at least a limited, do not talk about this stuff, and so these people needed some legal way to screw Stone and say, oh, here, you did something bad. And it was through this kind of order or this non-disclosure agreement that he had. And this kind of broke it. So this judge wants to add him to the letter and add him to be kind of in this gag order. And they just want to fuck him. And I think that that's good. I think that the federal justice system should fuck Roger Stone. He deserves to be ruined by this, and I think that bad things are coming for him, and I'm enjoying it. Okay, but moving on, that's kind of the fun stuff, or at least the stuff that isn't super politicky and heavy. Now we're gonna get into kind of the politics of it. This is just important news stories. I don't really like these stories, or I don't really like talking about Trump. It kind of is how it is, and it kind of ends up being the same old shit. a couple of these articles would be like this, but there are some important stories to talk about here. First off is the so first of all, Trump, yes, he ordered a emergency crisis, or whatever you want, national emergency for the crisis of unlawful immigration. That's what he claimed. And so 16 states, mostly, where they probably are. I think you can take a guess. But these states, they sued Trump. They were like, no, fuck this. We're not going to deal with this. We're not going to let you take all of our money because you don't like brown people. Like, that's not how this thing goes. And so what happened was, these 16 states, they realized the important part about this article, the main takeaway is that this could happen in Congress. There's a chance, but Congress doesn't have a lot of power right now. Yes, it's yes, they have a Democratic control or whatever, but they don't have the votes to actually sway the the vote or the veto. So the only way that these states think that they're going to be able to stop this national emergency that Trump is declaring is, through the courts. And obviously it makes for great press and all this stuff. But, we get some, the main thing we get out of this is clicks for the New York Times and a story for me. But take away from this, Trump, he's kind of screwing us again. He's going to waste, however much money, $5 billion or more. He's going to cause a national emergency. Who knows what else he's going to do with that. Just a kind of a shit situation. But yeah, it's good to see that, someone's trying to do something about it. Okay. So moving on to the next one. Just a real quick story. The White House is putting together a panel not to decide. Okay, I want you to all read this title with me. White House panel will study whether climate change is a national security threat. It includes a climate denialist. We don't care about that last bit. That's just the New York Times being, a biased motherfucker. But the important part is whether climate change is a national security threat. Are you fucking out of your mind? What are you, sociopathic? You think that... I don't understand this article at all, or at least this panel that they're putting together. These it's way too little, way too late, and I think it just people are gonna get real pissed off about this, and this has tons of the people that Trump has, the people, the denialists and the big coal or whatever. These people will always show up because Trump gets in with other fuckers. Bad apples come together, rotten apples come together, or whatever the phrasing goes. There's some phrase like that. I don't know which one it is though. But anyway, all these assholes and all these shitty people kind of conglomerate together, and they make this mesh of support, and they love each other, and blah 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 blah. And yeah, this is bad for us. This is probably going to end up really bad. I'm going to guess that something might come out of it. We might get some information out of it. We might get some thoughts, but I don't think we're going to get much action out of this panel. We're not going to see any change to, whatever you want to say. We're not going to see much change to policy or stricter guidelines on coal industry or anything that would really matter. I think what we're going to get is we're going to get a bunch of hot air, and we're going to get a bunch of bullshit and a bunch of the same shit that we always get, which is just, Trump talking out of his asshole and getting 4 other guys or whatever who either pay him or support him in some way. They're all on Trump's side. Everybody in the White House is on Trump's side. I want you to remember. And so this group that they're creating is just going to be a fucking mess, and it's going to look like a Monopoly board, but not a regular Monopoly board. It's like when you're 4 hours into a Monopoly game and everyone is just they're either sitting on a pile of wealth or they're just fucking pitiful. And it's all these guys in the Monopoly board, your friends, who turn into these fucking moguls. And that's who these moguls are. They're these real people who really do. Monopoly is a great way to understand how businessmen and powerful people fuck others to get to the top, and then how they sit in with each other. They get in bed with each other, they tickle each other's peepees and whatever, and they get what they want, We get 4 years of Team Trump, and then next year we might get, or I mean next cycle we might get 4 years of Team Bernie. And well, actually we have a story on that, but we'll get to that later. But you know what I'm saying is, these powerful people, all they do is sit in with each other, and they love to hear each other talk. And so this is just going to be a total bullshit panel pretty much for the most part. I don't see any much good coming from this. But this is actually a super important story. So essentially what's happening here is, high level White House employees, Trump appointees, things like that. All these key members are all part of this group, and their goal right now is to make money off Saudi Arabia, and they're doing a damn good job of it, and they're about to make way more money because of this new plan that they have in place. It's called, I think Trump is calling it a peace deal. Like, that's at least the way that they're looking at it right now. But essentially what's happening in this article, Michael Flynn, big guy involved in this, because he actually has, if we scroll down a little ways, we got to go pretty far actually. Oh, it's not here. It must have been in the other article. Okay. Well, anyway, Michael Flynn, he has his own nuclear power company, of course. Why else would Trump hire him? You know what I'm saying? He's part of the private sector. Of course, he's gonna love Trump. So essentially, what he did was he was one of the main dudes involved with this, this deal and this all of this effort that they're putting in, that the White House is putting in to send essentially nuclear technology and nuclear weapons, or at least the ability to make them. They're trying to send that over to Saudi Arabia, and I'm suspecting that there is a mass amount of money involved with this. But regardless, these people, they're just colliding with each other, and they're just getting involved more and more. And we saw it with the Khashoggi story. And way back a couple of months ago, I wrote an article about it. But Trump, he would rather support Saudi Arabia monetarily than even he almost didn't acknowledge the killing of a journalist who was against Saudi Arabia. Almost didn't. But essentially this story, there's a White House probe, which is really good. There's a Democratic internal probe going on right now that's uncovered a lot of bad shit, and what it's pointing to is these guys are talking about the U.S. supporting Saudi Arabia, and which could potentially destabilize a lot of the Middle East. We have Iran, who is extremely aggressively against Saudi Arabia. They have nuclear power. Who knows what would happen if we allow nuclear proliferation, spreading nukes. If we spread nukes to fucking Saudi Arabia, who's already kind of a shithole of a country, they don't support their people. They're in league with Putin, at least for the most part. I don't want to, say things that aren't exactly true, but I know that this guy, my man's Mohammed bin Salman, he and Putin, they kind of like each other, in a certain way. They have a connection, and I think that, what we're going to find is that these three guys, Mohammed bin Salman, Putin, and Trump are just, they're like these three little devils all working together kind of to, I don't know, to support themselves for the most part. It seems like they're just trying to make their lives better, and it's kind of fucking everybody else. And it's really, it's worrying for the rest of the country. I think that, the fact that Flynn is in league, he's part of the private nuclear sector, and he's going in and he's selling, or he's trying to sell these nuclear weapons to Saudi Arabia, and it's a bad look for everybody. And this probe is really going to be something interesting for the next couple of days. This report is going to, I hope more gets into it, and I hope something gets done about it, because this is a bad situation overall. All right. So we've talked about the White House a lot. We've had a couple stories. One more really politicky story to talk about real quick before we can talk about the fun little last little information. We have North Carolina's election fraud. It's a big story, actually. If we go down a little bit, state probe into the 9th congressional district. This was all for the Mark Harris's campaign. So allegedly, one of his aides, one of the people associated with him, would pay a group of people to take absentee ballots, people who didn't show up or whatever, and fill them out for Harris. And if you heard about the story a little while ago, North Carolina, it's one of the main states. It's one of these main states in this movement of kind of, there was this push, during the midterm elections. I can't exactly remember exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of, we're not going to let Democrats win the House back. And, it spread from North Carolina basically all across the southeastern United States. And it's all these states who were essentially saying, we're going to, if our Republican candidate loses, we're going to have a problem. And here we see that actually being carried out in the fullest. These people are actually going in and taking like hundreds of thousands of ballots. Not hundreds of thousands of ballots, but they're taking, a significant chunk of ballots, and they're tampering with them, and they're screwing with the system, and that's basically for partisan politics. And we get into this situation where, who knows what's going to come next if this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're just finding out about this. So, who knows what else is lying in the internal bits. We have a lot of stuff going on. We might have some trouble going on is all I'm trying to say.